Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Oh my goodness. Donald Trump is trying to bankrupt America. Stock market crashing big time. Farmers are crying. Steel folks are crying. People who build houses are saying you're jacking up prices on everything. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine will join us to discuss the Senate's approval of his bill to reject Trump's Canadian tariff. Guess who also has decided to wake up and realize this is a bad idea? Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley. I think farmers are really upset. South Carolina, the House has passed a controversial anti-DEI bill that targets state agencies and schools involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Well, guess what? Black Caucus not happy about that at all. We'll talk to a state representative who has shared his personal story about his father being threatened by the KKK, emphasizing the benefits of DEI. We'll also talk with the mother of a California college student who died in a hazing incident in 2018 while pledging Alpha Phi Alpha. Her advocacy contributed to the passage of a law allowing hazing victims to sue educational institutions. Plus, today, the 57th anniversary of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s final sermon, I've Been to the Mountaintop, delivered at Mason Temple Church of God of Christ in Memphis. We're going to show you an interview with the book author who called this a truly epic biblical speech. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's gonna go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah.
Hashtag we tried to tell you. Y'all have seen the shirts that we've been selling. Pull the graphic up. Hashtag we tried to tell you. FAFO 2025. You know, you got Project 2025, but with Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office, it's FAFO 2025. Well, what did Vice President Kamala Harris tell you? The man was going to screw up the United States economy with his tariffs. That's exactly what he has done. He announced the other day, which he called Liberation Day, massive tariffs against a number of different countries, including many United States allies. He has been constantly attacking Canada, calling them the 51st state, dismissing them, treating them like a stepchild. And Canada said, enough is enough. Well, guess what? The U.S. Senate passed a bill to undo Donald Trump's tariffs on Canadian goods. And of course, they make it clear that that's not how you treat a partner. But when you have the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon in chief, who's also a con man, leading the charge, well, this is what happens. Joining us right now is the senator from Virginia who sponsored that bill, Tim Kaine. Glad to have you back on the show.
Great to be with you, Roland. Thanks.
All of these people, and it pains me as well, all of these people, oh, we need a businessman back in the office. Oh, we need a businessman. Sure, it'd be great to have a businessman back in office. But I remember when we also had the first elected president to hold the MBA, George W. Bush. What do those two have in common? They both tanked the economy. And what he is doing here, stock market, CEOs are saying, what the hell are you doing? Ford announced laying off 900 workers. These tariffs are wrecking the economy, an economy that Biden-Harris handed him that was in good shape, rebounding from COVID.
Roland, President Trump inherited the strongest economy in the world when he was inaugurated in January. We were beating every other nation, not perfect, but manufacturing up, unemployment down, more people with health insurance than ever before, infrastructure being built. Donald Trump, in 2 months with his chainsaw, has left rubble, and it's getting worse. Consumer confidence down, stock market volatile, inflation up. Some Fed regions predicting not just a slower growth rate, but even a negative growth rate and recession. And he's doing it by indiscriminate and mass firings of people that hurt the economy, and this ridiculous focus on imposing the largest tax in the history of the peacetime United States, this national sales taxes, which is what tariffs do, for the most idiotic reasons and with no real economic justification other than I'm going to take the tariff revenue I collect and use it to fund a tax break for the wealthiest.
I really do think the people who work for him are absolutely in a cult. And the reason I have to say that, and I say that because I'm going to play the video in a second. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins was on Fox Business touting the amazing leadership of Donald Trump while they are showing the stock market down 1,400 points. What world are these people in?
Well, Roland, you've asked it, and I don't have a good answer for you. They are cultists. You know, Donald Trump talks about the golden age. I think it's like almost the golden years. This guy, especially on the economy, this quote businessman is wrecking the economy, and he's doing it for, you know, using discredited theories. You know, when the Republicans did tariffs under the Hoover administration, it just prolonged the Great Depression. They never work when they're done like this. There is a place for tariffs strategically applied against a nation that has put up artificial barriers against your own products. In that circumstance, tariffs could work maybe ultimately to lower tariffs everywhere. But using this bizarre mathematical formula they came up with and saying that they're imposing reciprocal tariffs against uninhabited islands and places around the world that hardly have people, much less products that are exported. I mean, I expect to see Legoland and Bikini Bottom on the next list of places that tariffs are going to be imposed. But you're right. Many of my colleagues, we had this vote last night, and we did get 4 Republican votes to overturn President Trump's Canadian tariffs. We still have to get this through the House. But I had many more Republicans tell me, you're right, we should be voting with you. We want to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's still early in his term. But last night was the first time any Republicans would stand up and cast a vote against Donald Trump in this term. And we just have to keep forcing them over and over again to cast votes of this kind. Do you accept these policies or do you disown them? It was good to see some of that muscle start to be exercised last night.
Senator, I don't understand your Republican colleagues. Oh, you're right. Well, we'll see. I mean, when are they going to get a backbone? They have constituents who are getting screwed. And it's like, oh, well, whatever the emperor wants, we're going to go ahead and do. They have no courage. They have no conviction. These folks are always talking about being tough. How about to start with the idiot at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Well, Roland, you asked a good question. When are they going to have a backbone? I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. We have a 2-week Senate recess that comes up around Easter, the week before and the week after Easter. And everybody's going to be back home hearing a whole lot. Just like I traveled around Virginia, I guess 2 weeks back. My small businesses, my farms, my universities, my health clinics, my food banks. I'm hearing from everybody. And I have a feeling this maximum strength tariff regime that he announced yesterday, people are going to hear about it very, very loudly when they're home. And then you may see more because, look, we're going to challenge the tariffs he announced yesterday. We're moving ahead on the Canadian challenge, but the tariffs he announced yesterday, we're going to challenge them too, and we'll likely have a vote on that. We'll be guaranteed a vote on it. It will likely happen shortly after we get back from this recess. And by then, the effects will be felt, and my colleagues will have heard from their constituents. And then we'll see, are they willing to show backbone or not?
Explain to people who don't quite understand how it works, how Congress is trying to take this back, because Congress gave a president, and just understand, I don't call him, I don't use the word president related to him because he has no respect for the office. So I'm speaking in general. Congress gave the office of the president the power, but Congress also has the power to say, nope, disagree. We can pass a bill and stop you from doing that.
Yes, Roland, I'm glad to. And you're right. There's sort of 2 ways to look at this. The Constitution clearly gives Congress the power to deal with trade, not the president. But Congresses of both parties, and this now goes back to right after World War II, started to delegate some powers to the president on trade issues, that the president can do X or Y. The tariffs that the president have imposed against Canada and now yesterday against the world are under a statute that has nothing to do with tariffs. It just says under dire national emergencies, a president can declare an emergency and take certain actions, but those actions can be challenged even by one member standing up and saying, wait a minute, I challenge your emergency. This is a law called IEEPA. It's like the International Economic Emergency Act. It doesn't say anything about tariffs, but it just allows presidents to act in the instance of national emergencies. Roland, this act has only been used against enemies. It's been used against North Korea. It's been used against Russia. It's been used against Iran. It's never been used against friends. So President Trump used it against Canada, Mexico, and China. And I was aware of this quirky little procedure. And so I filed a challenge to President Trump's Canadian tariff saying, we don't have an emergency with Canada. They're an ally, not an adversary. They're our biggest trading partner. These tariffs are a tax on American consumers. And when the senator files it, it becomes the pending business of the Senate 15 days later. No committee can shut me down, even though I'm in minority. Nobody can kick me to the curb. I get a vote when I challenge a presidential declared emergency. And that's what I got last night. And we held all 47 Democrats. We got 4 Republicans to vote with us. So the Senate has acted to turn off Trump's Canada tariffs. Now, we still have to get it through the House. But you point out a bigger point. Any tariff or any action that the president takes pursuant to this IEEPA statute, we can challenge it, tariff or otherwise. But you raised the bigger point. Why did Congress give this power away to the president? Shouldn't we haul it back? And the answer is, of course we should. And so there's a bill that's introduced today. Senator Grassley of Iowa, Republican, and Maria Cantwell, Democrat of Washington State, to begin to pull these powers back. Rand Paul has a similar bill. And the general format of these bills would be that a president could declare an emergency and take action, but it would be limited to 30 days. And beyond that, it would have to be authorized by Congress. Sometimes there are emergencies under which a president must act promptly, and Congress can be slow to get their act together. But we were not designed to be run by a monarch. We didn't want to have a king that could impose taxes on all of creation by his own say-so. And so we do think there might be some reforms to these trade and emergency laws that will haul power back to Congress.
Just a couple more questions. Your colleague, Senator Cory Booker, broke the record of racist, segregationist Strom Thurmond that really captured the attention of lots of people. Frank Luntz, who I frankly blame for a lot of the discord we see today with his polling, said that he was polling at the time some folks, some Democrats, and they said, this is what we want to see. Lots of people have been talking about a need for a change in Senate leadership with Minority Leader Senator Chuck Schumer. But talk about, again, what you're seeing and hearing. I travel this country. Listen, I got a home in Texas, got a home in Virginia. We spend time on the road. I'm in multiple states all the time. And what I keep hearing is, I need to see Democrats pounding tables, fighting, using every single weapon at their disposal to fight and combat this administration.
Yep, and Roland, you're right. And Cory did a fantastic job the other night. I was on the floor with him doing one of those colloquies that lets him lean on a podium for a few minutes while I ask him a question. He did an amazing job. And that's one of the reasons why this maybe isn't as known as it should be. We elected Cory to Senate leadership in January. He is now one of the key, in the key kind of 5 leadership team on the Democratic side, and he really showed it. And his speech really, in my view, it sort of set the framework for what we need to do going forward. No coincidence, the first Senate action after his speech was the vote on my challenge to Donald Trump on his tariffs. I'd filed the challenge about 3 weeks before. It had to ripen and then be the pending business of the Senate. But I didn't wait for permission from the leadership or anybody. I just said, I'm challenging Trump. And I think when you understand what this is about, Democrats, you'll get on board with me, and all did. We just need more people doing what Cory has done, and we need more, filing of these challenges to Trump. In minority, the tools can be limited, but we do have tools. And I hear the same thing you hear, that people want to see fight. We got to, do it in ways that are true to ourselves. But I'm really relishing the opportunity. Look, I delivered Trump his first loss in the United States Senate since he was inaugurated last night by getting some Republicans to join with Democrats, and I got a lot more up my sleeve.
All right, Senator Tim Kaine, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you so very much.
All right, I'm going to say hey to your good friend Don Scott when I see him next.
Well, I'm wearing my Texas A&M gear today. He's a graduate of A&M. We both pledged Alpha, same chapter, Pi Omicron, and I made it clear. And he's already hit me. He said, I'm going to need you on the road doing your show, doing some town halls to keep him as Speaker of the House in Virginia. So we look forward to hitting the road and hitting different places around Virginia in the coming months.
We'll watch for you out there. Thanks, Roland.
Thanks a bunch. Folks, I was telling y'all about Fox. If y'all want just some comedy, listen, this is Trump's agriculture secretary. While she's talking, the stock market is plummeting. Watch this.
While certainly the economy will be adjusting, the negotiations will continue. We are really, really excited and very grateful to President Trump's leadership and being willing to be bold and fearless in facing some pretty big policy challenges around the world.
So what is the impact on farmers then?
Well, we'll see, right? I mean, we're negotiating. Now we move into some significant negotiations. I mean, I've got a great chart here.
You can hold your little chart up all you want to. The impact on farmers, y'all getting screwed. Y'all getting screwed. So I don't want to hear all this. I need y'all to understand, these people are cracking me up, and all of those MAGA-loving farmers, hey, All I have for y'all is Scarface's No Tears. This is what y'all wanted. Y'all voted for this fool. Y'all are getting every single thing that y'all wanted by voting for this despicable man. Y'all are going broke. Y'all lost money last time. I need everybody who's watching to understand something. The American taxpayer had to spend $25 billion for farmers last time because Donald Trump invoked his tariffs. There were folk who were sitting here filing for bankruptcy. In fact, I remember this one story, just so y'all know how crazy these people are. There was this one dude who literally lost a family farm and said, yeah, I would still support Trump again. It's a cult, and they're crazy, and they're nonsensical. Now, if y'all want some more laughter, here is that dunce of a press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, on News Nation saying, there's not going to be any pain, no suffering from Donald Trump and our economy. Watch.
Well, first of all, Markey, I just want to address that yesterday was a great day for our country, and President Trump delivered on a campaign promise that he made to the 80 million American voters who elected him to this highest office, a promise that many presidents before him for decades refused to deliver upon. This is a national emergency. We have a $1.2 trillion trade deficit. We've had 90,000 factories closed across our heartland. We've had 5 million manufacturing jobs go overseas since 1997. And President Trump is finally doing something about it by implementing these reciprocal tariffs. It's the golden rule for the golden age of America. As for prices and what the American public can expect, they can expect price stability. They can expect to buy American. It's a patriotic thing to do. And most importantly, they can expect their wages to go up. We know that in President Trump's first term, wages went up by $6,500 per person. And that's because of the whole of government economic approach that this administration is taking, effectively implementing tariffs while also...
This won't be painful at all for American people and consumers, Caroline?
It's going to be, there's not going to be any pain for American-owned companies and American workers because their jobs are going to come back home. And again, as for prices, President Trump is working on tax cuts to put more money back into the pockets of Americans. He's working on massive deregulatory effort, which we know has already saved American taxpayers millions of dollars in just 2 months. And we're all...
There's a phrase that folk use for people like her. Girl, bye. All you heard there was gaslighting. All you heard there were just lies. And see, I love it how now Trump, yeah, the stock market don't matter. Oh, yeah, but it mattered when Biden was there. I hope y'all see how the game they play, the moving of the goalpost, and how media plays right along with it. Stock market cratering, 401ks getting battered, companies announcing layoffs. Hell, CNBC, Jim Cramer is just losing his mind over the craziness going on. And these people kind of like, well, everything's fine, everything's good. Y'all just go ahead and, it's just, the pain is not going to be bad. In fact, let me see if I can find this clip. Scott Bassett, who is the Treasury Secretary, this fool literally says, y'all, when I heard this, I couldn't believe it. He actually said to the other countries, don't y'all do nothing. Y'all bet not say nothing. You bet not respond. Really? And this was interesting. He's talking to us, Caitlin Collins of CNN. And when she asked him about this, he's like, well, the companies, they don't have to pass the increase in tariffs onto the customers. Watch this.
That looks, obviously, that's the president's ambitious agenda. But on, the argument of short-term pain, long-term gain, which assumes what you're arguing about the long-term, what this will look like, prices will go up for Americans in the short term, right?
They could. They don't have to.
And that's if they don't have to, you're arguing if businesses do not pass those on to those consumers.
Well, in the President Trump's first administration, prices didn't go up, so the businesses don't have to pass them on, or the producers in the other countries can eat the tariffs, and traditionally the dollar adjusts. So it's a very complicated calculus to see where we end up.
Yeah, and of course these are
they don't have to increase prices. And the countries, they could eat the tariffs. You the Treasury Secretary? You supposed to be a financial whiz? He worth more than $500 million? And saying bullshit like that? Everybody named Mama knows what's gonna happen. Prices are going to go up. If you put tariffs on wood, drywall, you're gonna pay more for a house. I couldn't stand algebra and geometry in school, but I damn sure know how to count. These people are insane, and they have no problem wrecking this country and following a plumb idiot, and they want us to believe that Donald Trump is some smart person when it comes to the economy. You've got to be kidding. Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University. He joins us right here every Thursday. Glad to have Greg. First of all, back at the home studio, because Greg was on the street last week. He was on the street kicking it with us last week. Glad to have him, Dr. Nola Haynes, Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. We'll be joined by Robert Patillo, civil rights attorney, radio show host out of Atlanta, joining us in a second. Greg, these folk, the cult is real. And we've said this many times before. We've said white folk are going to have to experience maximum pain for them to possibly wake up. Like, we get it. We know how we voted. They gonna have to get hit in all corners to then realize, yeah, that wasn't a good idea putting that fool back in. You're mute.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
I said, thank you, brother. You're right. You're absolutely right. And that pain won't be enough. History has shown us the pain won't be enough. The Democrats cut in half the margin by which the 2 seats that were in special elections in Florida a couple of days ago were lost by when the previous occupants were there, but they still didn't win. They beat back Elon Musk in Milwaukee, but the simple fact of the matter is there's still too many people in this country who don't care. I think the real story here we have is really about the world and the United States of America. All of us who live here, and of course we've been saying this all along, we don't just live in a world where there's only the United States. We live in a globe. A couple of days ago, South Korea, China met together with Japan. South Korea and Japan in the same room, and they said, we're going to have a joint response to these tariffs. Vietnam, Nike stock lost $250 billion since this thing hit, and much of their manufacturing is in Vietnam. So what's going to happen there? Now, these MAGA people saying the jobs are coming back, like Propaganda Barbie and all that, that's beautiful. Your MAGA friends getting ready to work for $5 a day? I don't think so. France is saying, Macron said today, European companies should not be investing in the United States. Remember that the trade deficit works the other way with the EU because the United States has a trade deficit with the European Union when it comes to services rather than goods. So this is not a dance that's going to be happy. In Brazil, they're saying we're not picking a side. Why? Because we got enough markets to serve. They are one of the main food suppliers in the world. And of course, we saw today the stock market's crashing everywhere, the stock market in the U.S. being the worst hit. They don't care. And I was interesting listening to you talk with Senator Kaine because there's a long article just came out in the New Yorker, David Kirkpatrick, writing about the man they're calling the invisible man. That's John Thune, the leader in the Senate. They're going to have some difficult choices to make in the months coming ahead. And those choices are going to have to center around whether or not you're going to stand by while one clown and his billionaire owners drag the United States of America into a multipolar world that they were going to go into anyway, but he's pressed the acceleration button. The world's getting ready to leave the United States behind. And I, for one, am not going to really shed a lot of tears.
No tears, Nola, no tears.
So Greg kind of like broke down some of the international stuff, and I actually have some data that was recently released from Navigator. It's very interesting, specifically looking at tariffs. And so I just want to kind of like run through a few important facts here. So overall, Americans find tariffs 53% unfavorable. It's no surprise that 81% of Democrats find it unfavorable. Now, the interesting number here are the independents, which is at 49%. Nor will it be surprising that only 26% of Republicans find the tariffs unfavorable. Now, what's very interesting is they also polled some strong Trump supporters, and 41% of not strong approvers say that tariffs are unfavorable. That is a 5% loss. So in different categories, depending on how you're looking at these stats, there are gains, and then there are also losses for the Republicans, right? So when you're looking at a number like 41% who don't strongly approve of the tariffs, who voted for Trump in 24, they lost 5% of those voters, right? So, and when you look at independents, which is a number that's really standing out here, 49% of them disagree, which is a 34-point loss. So these are some very interesting numbers as people are being more educated about tariffs and how they will impact their pocket, their kitchen tables, their small businesses, products that we buy from around the world. There was a conversation just last night in the foreign policy community about the tariffs that were hitting today from China. And as we all know, many of the things, especially saying something like fast fashion, which is a huge market, your clothes, your makeup, all of those things are going to have higher price tags. So the things you're not even thinking about, if you still shop at Sephora, Black women, I hope not, but you know, you're running to go grab your MAC or you're going to go grab your Fenty, all of those prices are going to go up, right? So people are going to start feeling these effects very soon. And listening to you talk to Senator Kaine, what I found interesting in that conversation is this idea of, oh, everything's, going to be fine. That's what the cult is saying, right? To me, these people don't seem like they love America a whole bunch. The way they run around talking about their patriots and left and this, that, and the third, they seem intent on destroying this country. All the things that Senator Kaine laid out in my security brain tells me that is a bad actor. And that person is working against the U.S. I'm sorry, Roland.
Well, actually, that was Robert. You heard Robert coming on. He just joined us. Robert, we had Senator Tim Kaine talking about these tariffs, and it's hilarious listening to these right-wingers act as if, oh, well, it's just some short-term pain. You're just going to have to deal with it. They wasn't saying deal with no short-term pain with Biden Harris.
Roland,
they were yelling, "Happy days are here again."
Roland, this is not short-term pain, and I want people to understand that. This is not a blip. This is not a one-day market fall. If you look back at what happened when the United States passed the Smoot-Hawley tariffs in the 1930s, it caused the Great Depression. This is how economics work. That as we've seen, the European nations in the EU said that last year they began the process of Trump-proofing their economy and the expectation that this may come. They have already begun the process of petitioning Canada to join the EU as a new trading partner to go around the United States marketplace. If you look at what's going on in the developing world, if you look at the tariffs that he put on Africa and other nations, this is pushing them closer to China than the Belt and Road Initiative ever could have, because their markets understand that they can no longer depend on the United States to be the place where they send their goods. So when we're talking about how long it will take to fix this, it may be decades to dig our way out of this hole that President Trump is putting himself into. And this was in Project 2025 when they talked about resetting U.S. trade relations, when they talked about changing the global trade assets. And for people who are looking at that chart that President Trump put up yesterday saying XYZ country is charging us 90% tariffs and we're putting a 34% tariff on them, that sort of thing. Those numbers are made up. Just so you understand, those numbers are imaginary. Look at the World Bank numbers, look at the World Economic Forum numbers on exactly what the effective tariff rates are that exist. The tariff rate from the EU to the U.S., which President Trump claims is at close to 60%, is measured to be at 0.2%. All that he is currently doing is intentionally wrecking the U.S. economy so that he can make it cheap enough for those billionaires who are lined up in inauguration to be able to buy up the rest of the American economy at bargain basement prices. That's the only way that this makes sense. And this is in no way, shape, or form something that is either economically cognizable or even historically cognizable in any form, whether it's mercantilism, Keynesian economics, Friedman. You can go down the lines. No one says this is a good idea. So the best thing people can do, learn how to purify rainwater. If you and your friends have a bunker that you can go to and bug out, be prepared for that. We are entering the times we warned you about, or as Roland would say, we tried to tell you.
That's right. Now, the point Robert just made there, I need everybody who's listening, who's watching and listening to understand what I'm saying. When you drive the economy down, people panic. Folks start selling. Do you know what rich folks do? They start buying. They start buying. So what Donald Trump is doing, he's purposely wrecking the economy. And do you know who's sitting there smiling? The sharks, the predators, the Kevin O'Learys, the oligarchs. They're sitting here going, we can grab up tech stocks a lot cheaper. We can grab up textiles a lot cheaper. That's what this is all about. Game, recognize game. And all of y'all's working class people and all of you fools like the fool from Compton who gonna hit me, oh man, we had money in our pockets when Trump was there. Your ass ain't gonna have none of that now. And y'all gonna be singing the blues. Oh, and guess what? There will be no government safety net to save your ass because Elon took care of that too. Y'all got played, but we tried to tell you. We come back, South Carolina Republicans, they want to get rid of DEI. They've been trying to get rid of black people since the Civil War. So it's no shock what they're doing. We'll talk about what they're doing next and hear from a state official who really laid it out in stark terms. They didn't care what he had to say, but he still said it. That's next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
This week on The Other Side of Change.
The attacks on education, book bans, and what it means for us.
Our guest, Aaliyah Logan, who will join us talking about what are the implications for the lack of investment in education, both locally and internationally, and what this will mean for future generations.
Fighting back against any of the administration's attempt to essentially make sure that people are uneducated and destroy history and make sure you forget history and historical things that have happened.
Check us out on The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. I don't play Sammy, but I could. Or I don't play Obama, but I could. I don't do Stallone, but I could do all that. And I am here with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
In South Carolina, lawmakers passed a controversial bill that targets state agencies and schools for any diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that they have in place. Well, Democratic State Representative J.A. Moore voted no after speaking out against the bill Wednesday in a speech centered on his family's history and his father, who fought to uphold civil rights. Check this out.
I've been wrestling all year. Once I saw that this bill was introduced and then in committee, and once it got in committee, it passed out, and I heard a bunch of testimony from people all over the state. And I want to thank Representative Jones for this very important amendment. This amendment should have been the first amendment because this is what it speaks on. But Representative Dr. Jermaine Johnson, oftentimes history repeats itself. But why? Why does history often repeat itself, Representative King? It repeats itself because too often in the moment, in the current time, we refuse to study history. We don't want to look back. Even though once y'all pass this bill, y'all gonna be taking this entire state back. Not just black folk, all folk. So Representative Hosey, Representative Clyburn, the only thing I knew to do when I was thinking about looking back at history is I looked to my father, y'all's dear friend. I looked at all the writings he left me, all the speeches that he left. And in that research, Madam Chairwoman, I found this old tattered ledger. This tattered ledger, the first date on this ledger was March 6, 1965. Exactly 20 years before I was born. In this tattered letter, I found some profound words in this old tattered ledger. See, just a few days prior to this ledger being first written in, my father got a call from the Ku Klux Klan. See, my father was the first president of the NAACP in Hampton County. My father got a call from the Ku Klux Klan and said, if you don't stop fighting for diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're gonna kill you. My father just on March the 5th of 1965 woke up to the smell of a burning cross in his front yard as his young children and his wife at the time lay sleeping. See, my father, in this moment when he was writing in this old tattered ledger, he wrote these 4 simple words: I am not nervous. 65 times, Representative Cobb Hunter, he wrote, I am not nervous. As his life was threatened, as his children's life was threatened, he was a 33-year-old man. He was not nervous to fight for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And see, Mr. Taylor, he wasn't fighting for a more diverse South Carolina for him and his kids alone, a more equitable South Carolina just for black folk, a more inclusive South Carolina just for us. No, for your kids too. Because he recognized as a 33-year-old man in 1965 as his life was threatened, that diversity, equity, and inclusion is good for all South Carolinians.
Representative Moore joins us right now. I'm glad to have you here. Impassioned speech. Did it fall on deaf ears, or were they actually listening?
Well, Roland, I want to first thank you so much for having me on your program. The work you're doing to encourage all of us to not wait around for others to hand us stuff, but to earn it on our own. This is a perfect example of a merit-based organization, a merit-based platform. So I just want to thank you and honor you for all the work that you're doing with your network. But for me, Roland, although my Republican colleagues had already had a made-up mind on how they were going to vote on this piece of legislation, for me, the words that I spoke on yesterday weren't just for those that were in the State House yesterday, but it was for your million plus viewers on your network, for the tens of thousands of people that have connected with me since I gave that speech, because for me, it's something that my father taught me so long ago, that freedom comes through suffering, and that we have to do everything that we can to make sure that we fight for freedom, even in the midst if we may lose a battle.
What's amazing, I kept trying to warn people that what you saw happening, really it started with Ron DeSantis in Florida, goes to Georgia, goes to Texas. Now Trump goes in. Now it's, now we got permission. It will now, I kept warning people, this is going to go from national, it's going to filter to states. It's going to go from the states to counties to cities to school boards. At the outset, after the inauguration, I said that Trump, MAGA, Project 2025, Republicans, they want to defund Black America. They want to attack the economic and the civil rights infrastructure, although not perfect, that has not achieved all that we wanted, but is a hell of a lot better today than what it was. They want to end that, and frankly, they want to return back to days of Jim Crow, even though they don't use the phrase.
Yeah, and Roland, the irony of it all is most individuals that benefit directly, not just here in South Carolina, but across this country, for a more diverse, equitable, inclusive South Carolina and America, and who benefit mostly from these types of programs are white women. See, that's the secret to this whole thing, that the attack, although intended to negatively affect the Black community, mostly are hurting themselves. Because for most African Americans I know, like yourself and so many others that have been successful in their life, we do it in spite of the fact that we don't have these programs that too often benefit us. My biggest challenge with it all is when we're talking about education, an attack on education. One of my colleagues, I'll give a shout out to the Honorable Representative Tiffany Span Wilder, did an eloquent and very detailed report when we talked about our flagship universities, like the University of South Carolina, Clemson University, Wofford, and going forth. When they were saying, like, diversity, equity, inclusion, we're getting rid of these programs, Black folks are invading these colleges, that's just simply not true. Less than 20%, closer to 10% of the student population at these flagship universities are people of color. And still 90% of those folks are still white folks. So although they're trying to attack Black people and people of color, it's really long term is going to have a negative effect on our white sisters out there, not black folks. Because we're going to be resilient, and we always have been.
So, where were the white men in South Carolina? Did they speak up against the bill?
See, again, that's the crazy part about it. You can peel my head, but you ain't gonna tell me it's raining. And I think the problem is that too many of the elected leaders in the state of South Carolina, be them white or black, especially those that voted for the bill, they voted not in their best interest, especially the white women at the State House, and also anybody that represents white women at the State House. They voted against the interests of the constituents, but we didn't have enough of them as far as white Republican elected officials speak out. But we did have a number of all races, all genders of South Carolina speak out against the bill.
But see, this is why what I say to black folks, and I've had a lot of black folks say, man, damn all this DEI stuff, white women being benefiting more than anybody else, not us. And I go, you're right, but I want to ask you, when they get rid of MWBE programs, how many contracts are we going to get? Last year, $700+ billion spent on the federal government level. Black contractors got $10 billion, less than 2%. But it was a record $10 billion. I would rather get $10 billion than get $9 billion, $9 billion than 8, 8 than 7, 7 than 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What I am warning our people is that we are literally at risk of them completely decimating the black economic infrastructure if you then begin to see the ending of programs that have driven billions of dollars to black-owned businesses on the federal, state, county, city level.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you 100%. I've worked both as a legislator and on the private sector on programs like the DBE program, 8-8 programs. These programs can definitely transfer starting businesses, minority business, and create generational wealth. So we have to do everything we can to fight like hell for these programs. The point I was simply making is, like, what we see is that a lot of times, this bill in particular, let me back up. This bill in particular is the first of its kind in the country where it's like a Trump anti-DEI bill, and the Republicans are touting that. The very real consequences of the bill. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars of economic impact on the state of South Carolina. Tens of millions of dollars. And that ain't all going out of the pockets of black folks, I'll tell you that right now. And so that why it was so important, if you listen to the entire speech that I gave, that I tried to make sure people recognize and realize diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't about black folks alone. It's about all South Carolinians, even though it's definitely a targeted bill towards progress that we've made in the wake of George Floyd and 2020 and all the advances that we saw when it comes to DEI. But the truth is that all South Carolinians and Americans benefit from a more diverse South Carolina, more equitable South Carolina, more inclusive South Carolina.
All right, well, Representative Moore, keep up the fight. Look, it was the brothers in the South Carolina legislature who created taxpayer-funded education. Robert Smalls, the folks who fought them at every turn. And so some things change, but some things stay the same.
Yeah, thank you so much, brother. And I just want to give a special shout out to our Madam Chairwoman Annie McDaniels for her fearless fight, and all the members of the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus. Thank y'all so much for the fight, and we're not done fighting yet. Thank y'all so much.
All right, thanks a lot. We appreciate it. I want to pick up on that point, Robert. I want to start with you. And I must say this, and if I had to say it every day, I need people to get this. This is a systematic attack on black economics, on black civil rights. If you attack the black economic base, you attack all of black America. That's HBCUs, that's nonprofits, that's churches, that's employment, that's housing. It's all of that.
You're absolutely right. And I want people to also talk to your Congress people about this, because what we're dealing with right now is not just a systematic attack. It is an attempt to resegregate America. They call it DEI. You can call it diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a conversation about segregation. If you remember from American history class in high school, they talked about de facto versus de jure segregation. When you remove the legal protections that integrate institutions, when you violate that order from Supreme Court saying with all deliberate speed to use, as LBJ said, affirmative action in order to integrate institutions, we are talking about the resegregation of America, the resegregation of the American workforce, the resegregation of American educational institutions, and then the resegregation of the American dollar. Because as Janice Mathis says all the time, during slavery, discrimination and enslavement was not about proximity. They'd have a black slave warm up their bed, breastfeed their children, and make their grandchildren for them. They were not mad about being around black folks. It was about the power dynamic of that relationship. When you take away access to capital, when you take away access to housing, when you take away access to education, you're putting us back into a place that we haven't been in 150 years as black folks in America. And I, for one, refuse to be the generation where we have to look back at the ancestors and say, what the hell happened? We handed y'all everything, and y'all let it go away for a $1,500 check 7 years ago and a Sexy Red and Waka Flocka Flame concert? Is that what we're really doing as black folks in this country? So we have to put together a plan around this and how to fight back. It's not just enough to do speeches. Tomorrow morning, Congressman Cleo Fields and Congressman Jonathan Jackson are doing a live stream at 10 a.m. on both of their Instagram pages to talk exactly about the Congressional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Caucus and these attacks that we're now seeing also on voting rights. I remind people that this is just step one. Listen to Charlie Kirk. Listen to Ben Shapiro. They've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 years repealing the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Not just gutting the Voting Rights Act and what's left of that husk, making sure that it can never be revived again. Stacking the federal courts to ensure that any protections for desegregation, affirmative action, or diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are rooted out from the bottom and up. Even right now, the president and vice president are compelling our European allies through this tariff policy to get rid of diversity programs in their own countries, while also offering visas to South American whites who they feel are being discriminated against. It is exceedingly clear what the policy of this administration is. Deport 10 to 20 million brown people, destroy the economies of black and brown nations, annex Canada and their majority white population, make Greenland a territory and their majority white population, import white South Africans from South Africa with visas and incorporate them into the population. When Elon Musk talks about we need to save Western civilization, we need to make more babies, they're not talking about Consuela, they're not talking about Lakeisha, they're talking about Bonnie and everyone else from those European nations. This is a plan that David Duke talked about in 1988 that we're seeing being brought to fruition today, and we are sitting around watching it happen.
I am constantly telling people, Noah, that if you come to Washington, D.C., and if you stand in front of the White House, then you look to the left, you're going to realize there's no fence, there's no barrier. There's only one agency that shares along with the White House, Treasury. White House is power, Treasury is money. Treasury is money, White House is power. Those two go together. And I'm always saying, if you're not having a money conversation, you're not having an American conversation. Folks can talk about ending capitalism and rebuilding an American system. I'm just telling you right now, that shit ain't happening. This country is capitalism. It is predatory capitalism. It is about the money. And black folks need to understand that, and we've already seen this with the Confederate statues. We've seen this in Tennessee, where they banned, Memphis passed a law when it comes to policing after those cops beat that brother, Tyree Nichols. What did they then do? Oh, no. Y'all can't pass that law. Superseding them. They pass laws. No. Y'all can't pass that law. Just watch. Black people, listen to me. In states where you have significant black population, you might be in the red state Republicans control, they are going to start passing laws telling cities, counties, and school districts what they can and cannot do when it comes to DEI, MWBE, and contracts. That, for them, is the holy grail because that's where most African Americans are being able to do business. Nola?
Absolutely. Black codes, Jim Crow, all of it. I mean, it's part of the plan. And, you know, Robert said a lot of interesting things and some of the things that I wanted to pull some threads on. And, you know, I also want to make this point. You know, Black folks, we can make money in certain ways. You know, one of them is being an athlete. You know, we can entertain people. That's absolutely fine. Black entertainers have always been, you know, the exception. But, you know, you go too far when there is a Black president. Then you're going even too far when a Black woman, Southeast Asian woman wants to run for president. And then before you get to that point, you have the white president opening up the White House to all of our little Black behinds. You know, like we joke about how Black folks were in and out of the White House during the Biden-Harris administration, but it was kind of true. And they are watching all of this. So we have moved beyond the acceptable realms for Black folks to be prosperous and to entertain people. But when you were talking about real power, you know, when you were talking about decision making, that's when it becomes problematic. And too much of that was happening. Black people were gaining too much, not just in the sectors where it's acceptable, but beyond those areas. And it wasn't just one or two. You know, we were opening the doors and bringing in more and bringing in more and bringing in more. And being from Louisiana, you know, David Duke, since I was a child, has been on my radar, right? And he has, to Robert's point, has been committed to making sure that Black folks, you know, we don't get too uppity, but we got too uppity, so we had to be legally checked. So do not be surprised, to Roland's point, when you start seeing new laws, when you start feeling like, wait a minute, I can't gather with other Black people. You know, I can't be in this congregation, or I can't be in this community because there's going to be Black codes 3.0 that's going to roll out. And I am at the phase of this of what do we do? How do we counter it, right? Because we know all the things, we know all the problems, we've laid out all of the problems. But I agree with Robert. I'm not about to sit here and let this happen on my watch. Absolutely not. And so I'm happy that there's a lot of legal pushback, but it needs to be a dynamic approach. And I am eager to see what happens on April 5th. I'm eager to see how many people are going to actually get out there in the streets. I know that they're reporting very large numbers, but I'm eager to see what this is going to look like. Because if it's going to be the numbers that folks are expecting, it's going to be the largest showing of Americans standing up and saying, we don't think so. This is not what we want. Because where we are right now is very dangerous, not just for Black people, but also for women. Because as Black people, as Black codes start coming back, women are legally then told we have to stay in the house for one reason or the other, right? So this time right now is crucial, and I cannot stress that enough to the viewers. If you were staying home, and I understand you may not want to be out and marching and protesting, there are many other ways to get involved. There are many other ways for your voice to be heard. You got to get involved.
You said that, Nola, and Greg, I want you to speak up what we're talking about. Because I remarked this yesterday, there's this sister, I think she's a professor somewhere, saying that, you know, you shouldn't be telling Black folks that we need to be out there marching, protesting on April 5th. Then this other sister emailed me last night, you know, I didn't like how you were talking to her, you were being rude. And I said, I'm confused. I said, folk get to talk to me crazy, but I can't fire back. I said they get to say, they get to have an attitude and they get to have a certain tone in their voice, but when I clap back, then I'm in the wrong. And I sat there and but you shouldn't be telling folk what they should do. We watch, we support. And I said, yeah, I get that. I said, but let me be real. And again, and there's one person, I made it clear. One was like, well, I used to support the show. I used to do this. And I was like, well, if you don't watch it anymore, I'm like, we good. I'm like, we'll be fine. But the thing that got me, though, was that you mad because I'm using, a person like, you were unhinged. I'm like, no, because I was using passion, advocating that this is not a moment for us to be sitting down. That brother in South Carolina knew they were going to pass that bill. But he still stood up and spoke. Cory Booker knew what they were going. When Senator Cory Booker finished after 25 hours, 5 minutes and 30 seconds, they moved to pass the NATO ambassador. Okay? But the point I'm making is this is not a moment for us to be kicking back, chilling like, man, okay, y'all got it. No. Because the reality this, Greg, people ain't getting this. Georgia Republicans could pass a bill that impacts the MWBE programs in Atlanta. You don't get you can't call Atlanta the Mecca. You don't have, Russell Construction is on its way to becoming a $1 billion construction company. How? Because it started because a black man, Maynard Jackson, when he was elected, black people were getting 0.0012% of all city contracts in Atlanta. Not 1%, not 0.5%, not 0.25, not 0.10, not 0.05, 0.0012%. So these folk, Greg, think I'm not going to fire back and tell black folks I need y'all to engage? Because if they come after the city contracts and the school district contracts and the county contracts and eradicate the state contracts, we'll see what's happening on the federal level. Trump sitting here and Elon getting rid of Musk. The Florida A&M Pharmacy School is now not getting now $17 million in grants. Oh, where's that little FAMU graduate who was down there cheesing at the White House for the Black History Month? Are you fighting for your school? Are you now, that little black MAGA girl, are you now going in telling Trump what you doing? That other little girl in Atlanta who was running her mouth for MAGA for Trump, is she standing up fighting for Morehouse, fighting for Spelman? Is she fighting for Fort Valley State? Are they fighting for those schools? Hell no. So excuse me if some of y'all got a little problem because I'm a little passionate about fighting for what's ours, because the last thing we need, as Robert said, and as Nola said, the last thing we need is for the shit to go down on our watch and we sitting around fucking around at brunch and doing a boots on the ground dance while they putting that boot in our ass.
That's the passion we have to have. Frankly, Roland, I would say that there is no we. There is a demographic we in terms of black people in the United States, just like there's a demographic of black people in the world. But in order for us to be a we, we'd have to think about, what do we want? What is our objective? When you look at Atlanta, and of course, here we are on the 57th anniversary of Dr. King's mountaintop speech in Memphis. What happened in Memphis? What happened in Atlanta and Charlotte? What happened in Detroit and Cleveland? What happened in Los Angeles? What happened in New York? You know, there are class dimensions to this that we've never had to face. When we talk about economic benefits for black people, that very same Maynard Jackson administration in Atlanta did very well for black people who had access to and made it into the black upper class and the black solid middle class, but the black poor remain. Those same black poor that have a very deep critique of Andre Dickens and Keisha Lance Bottoms, whether you're talking about Cop City, you know, Robert has talked about this. I'm saying all that as a prelude to this. If you read books like War for Eternity, which is Benjamin Teitelbaum's book on Steve Bannon, the globalist, a dangerous global political operative, I embrace Steve Bannon fully because he is a full-bred white supremacist. He doesn't care about the United States as much as he cares about his imaginary race. And like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and others, Steve Miller and others, they have a vision of trying to save themselves from what Francis Cress Welsing would call genetic extermination or annihilation, rather. They think they're preserving something in this ridiculous concept of race. But when we talk about what we want, and you talked to Representative Moore there, and he mentioned his father, James Moore, one of the Marines at Mumford Point, North Carolina, who, of course, went on to lead the NAACP there. And, you know, what were those black people fighting for in South Carolina? They were not fighting to sit next to white children in the schools. This is where we talk about Brown versus Board of Education, but we know that those early cases in South Carolina are what laid the foundation for everything that came late after. And what they wanted was equality, equal resources. And you mentioned Robert Smalls and Robert Elliott in that South Carolina legislature. And public education in the South, we know, was a black idea, as Du Bois teaches us in his book, Black and Reconstruction. And they wanted everyone to get an education. But they didn't want to trade their culture, their foundation, as those Siala and Gullah Geechee Africans in Georgia and South Carolina. They just want to be left alone to build. This is where I'm going with it. Of course, this passion that we hear commingle with your keen analysis of what must be done is not to become beholden to a structure where a few of us get rich, the rest of us are poor, and we call that progress. So I would say this, finally. I find myself a lot more contemplative right now. I'm thinking about what must be done. One is education. We have never been patriotic. Anyone who wants to tell me that we have been patriotic, I really do invite you to let's be in conversation about that, because I'm going to walk you chapter and verse through our experiences. We've used patriotism as a defense mechanism. What these white boys are about to find out is that once you break it, it will not be rebuilt. Let's take South Carolina. You want to pass these anti-DEI laws? No problem. A supermajority, 82 to 32. I was in Columbia, South Carolina about 3 weeks ago. They got a statue of John C. Calhoun right outside their chamber where Representative Moore voted. Well, then pass that law. And the first running back, the first two guard for Dawn Staley at the University of South Carolina, who says, I will not attend for my 1 year in college.
Come on.
Make my money in name and likeness. I will not attend any school that doesn't have these policies. Watch how quickly these crackers say, wait. Now, I'm not saying that's about to happen today or tomorrow or next week. You know, Deion Sanders could have done it at Jackson State, but he's not built like that. And that's not a criticism of him, because there are very few who are built like that. But I'm saying when one emerges, when Dawn Staley decides, maybe I'll coach at University of South Carolina. No, South Carolina State. Maybe nobody needs to play football for Clemson anymore. Now, some of these young people won't have the maturity to make that decision, and they're going to play anyway. But when enough of us begin to do otherwise, and when the white boys who claim that they are genetically superior, intellectually superior, realize that they don't have enough people, not only in the United States, but in the world, to reverse what they are putting in motion now, oh, woe be unto it. I'm not a flag waver. I don't give a damn about the American flag, but I tell you what I give a damn about. I give a damn about my people, wherever they are in the world, and I give a damn about our common humanity. When they break it, we will have an opportunity to build the thing that has been in our heart from the beginning, and it ain't got nothing to do with George Washington, it ain't got nothing to do with a Constitution or a Declaration of Independence, and it has everything to do with black self-determination and human freedom. And I am excited about what's going on right now, because these hillbillies are showing the world who they are, and they have overestimated their ability to control a whole world. We need to be smart now and look at our allies around the world and act locally. With that in mind, we're going to be better than fine. We're going to be just fine. Just fine.
I had somebody say, I looked in the chat, because y'all know I'm always keeping up. Somebody says, why they working so hard to get us out on April 5th? y'all ain't listening. We're not telling you you need to run out to Indivisible's March on April 5th.
Right.
See, that's what, some of y'all so damn simple. Some of y'all, and I had somebody say, Roland, you shouldn't be insulting people who watch. No, I call it like it is. I call it like it is. And I've called it like it is for 6.5 years. So this ain't nothing new. Some of y'all so simple. We're not saying that you need to go to the Indivisible March on April 5th.
No.
What we're saying is you cannot act like April 5th is a day off. The last 2 nights, I told y'all, Dr. King had been gunned down. 6:01 p.m., pronounced dead. Riots breaking out nationwide. Folks are in shock. And his lieutenants were in the same hotel room planning what they were going to do next in Memphis. Now, if you Ralph Abernathy, and you Andrew Young, and you Ben Hooks, and you Reverend Jim Lawson, and you James Orange, and you Hosea Williams, and the man who y'all were just talking about going to dinner with, gunfire rings out, he falls dead, face, neck shattered, dead. 3, 4, 5 hours later, they are literally sitting in a hotel room? What's next? Some of y'all might say, well, how do you know that? Because Jim Lawson told me. He said, Roland, we didn't have time to grieve. We had work to do. So some of y'all are sitting here tripping. I don't know why now let them go on out there. I'm not saying we need to be standing with them, going with them, doing what they do. Let them go what they do, but I damn sure
That's right.
am saying
That's right.
that we should be doing something.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
What I am saying is what happens when black folks raise up and say, enough is enough. Stock market is down in a huge way today. 2 days ago, I was texting Nina Turner, Jamal Bryant, Tamika Mallory. Target stock was sitting at $104. I said, we got to get Target stock under $100. This is Target stock when it closed today, $94. I had a brother sit here on my Instagram page, trying to give Trump's tariffs the credit for this happening. Well, you know, the tariffs, that's why it's down. It's the tariffs, that's why it's down. Target has seen its foot traffic drop for 8 consecutive weeks. Because on January 24th, Target announced the ending of their DEI programs. I showed y'all what the stock was on January 28th. And see, that brother was sitting here just running his mouth. And see, here's why it's never wise. It's never wise to run your mouth with me. Because see, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit your ass square in your mouth with the facts. Brother tried to post, well, you know, the Costco stock has been down as well. Yeah, he tried that. You cannot convince me that the Target stock was $145 on January 28th when Nina Turner's group announced they were launching a boycott on February 1st On March 1st, Pastor Jamal Bryant announced their 40-day fast, and Target stock has been going down, 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 down. And then you got the folks who sitting here, oh man, I don't know, I don't really know. And I know some very prominent people who told me, well, you know, Roland, this is not going to, this is not going to work. And I said, really? 150,000 people have signed up for the Target fast. 150,000 people. Others have opted, I'm not walking in. That's called collective black action. And what have I always said? That when you organize, then mobilize black people, you have to do it micro to go macro. You do it for one day, then you expand it. And now all of a sudden, you see the fruits of your labor, and then you out now go, well, who's next? I can guarantee you there are some big box retailers, Walmart.
Yeah, their stocks are going down too.
But I guarantee you Walmart is sitting here going, man, I sure hope they don't target us next. See, some of us, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because I ain't got a problem saying it, that if we really want to be real, there are black people who do not actually stand with black people when it's time to fight. They actually stand on the sideline, or they sit on the sideline. Everybody and their mama who claimed they marched with Martin lying because they didn't. I told y'all in Nehemiah it's the same. There's a thing called black haters. And there are black haters who use their mouths and the social media to denigrate and degrade collective efforts to transform black America, but then they are also the loudest about what we haven't done, what we ain't done. They're real quick to stand up there and say, oh, your vote not gonna matter, so therefore don't vote. But then they go right back on radio shows pontificating about how we ain't got this and we ain't got that and what the white man haven't done, but they're the same ones who said don't vote. They're the same ones who talk about what we need to build in black America, but they ain't built nothing. They ain't built no school, they ain't built no business, they ain't built nothing. But I love it. So I'm just real clear. If somebody ain't built nothing, don't listen to them about building, because they ain't got anything real to say. And then I had somebody, then a brother gonna jump on here, and he gonna yell, well, you know, Costco, Costco stock has been down over the same period. But then I pulled it. Target was at $145.80 on January 28th. Costco stock, with even all of the nonsense with Trump, has gone up since January 28th. That's the difference between somebody who says, no, we gonna buck the trend. So I'm saying all of this because I need our people to stop. I mean, like, y'all literally, they were sending me emails. Yeah, I ain't like what you had to say. I ain't like how you said it. And I ain't like your tone. Well, you know what? And I tell the person, you ain't gotta watch. So let me just go ahead and say this here for the folk out there who got something to say, because I don't like how you said it, and I don't like how you brought it up, and I don't like how you toned. This was circulating on Twitter today. Somebody hit me up, and I wasn't even aware of it. They posted, these are the fastest growing political and political adjacent YouTube channels by net new subscribers in Q1 2025. Midas Touch, number one. Then you see how they got it as blue and red. Midas Touch, Brett Cooper, Fox News, Candace Owens, MSNBC, Brian Tyler Cohen, Joe Rogan, Now This Impact, The Daily Show, Adam Mockler, Occupy Democrats, Megyn Kelly, David Pakman, Value Entertainment, Johnny Harris, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, I've Had It podcast, Tucker Carlson, Democracy Now!, and then Roland Martin at plus 250,000 subscribers. Here, we are outpacing Secular Talk, More Perfect Union, Luke Beasley, The Bulwark, Jesse Dolomore, Bernie Sanders, Jack Cochiarella, Keith Edwards, Rebel HQ, Piers Morgan Uncensored, Benny Johnson, Aaron Parnas, Jordan Peterson, PBD Podcast, Robert Reich, Fair and Balanced, Tizzy Entertainment, Politics Girl, Glenn Kirshner, The National Desk, Nelt Boys, CBN News, New York Post, Majority Report with Sam Cedar, Walter Masterson, Bill O'Reilly, Pondering Politics, Vox, and The Rubin Report. Sounds to me like we doing something that's right. We as black people, we are not going to be able to raise a collective conscience if we waste our time and energy on folk who have not committed themselves to collective work. Mm-hmm. And that was exactly what Dr. King said in his April 3rd, 1968 sermon at Mason Temple. It took place 57 years ago tonight, where he talked about that black people individually are poor, yet collectively represent one of the largest economies in the world, and that if we are going to change the condition of our community, it will not happen unless we as a people move as a collective. And that applies to contracts, that applies to education, that applies to everything. And so if you're one of those folks and you don't want to do anything and you don't want to take any action, go on right ahead. But I don't want to hear you complain about what we haven't gotten. And then don't be like that MAGA, that little black MAGA girl posted a video in her little MAGA hat. But then when her son was getting, they were about to convict him and sentence him to 21 years in prison, then she want to come running to black people talking about, my son getting railroaded, I need some help. Baby, call Charlie Kirk. Call them, because if you want to run with them, let them bail your sorry ass out. I'm going to go to a break. We come back. Lots more to unpack and talk about that we're going to deal with. But y'all see how we're growing and how we're building. We have not gotten here without your support. So you supporting our channel is critically important. Again, we don't have millionaires and billionaires who cut us checks. I'm just telling you right now. I know who supports us. I see the money orders. I see the checks. I see who supports us on Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, and PayPal. And so this is all about how do we build collectively, because we gotta have a daily voice that speaks to our issues and our interests. So you want to join us? We have 35,000 people who have donated to this show since we launched September 4th, 2018. We, of course, run all of those names every single Friday as a salute to thank you for their support, whether they gave one time or whether they gave it once a year, or even there are 4 people who have tithed to this show every month for 6.5 years. So if you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club, the goal is very simple: to get 20,000 people contributing on average $50 each a year. At $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. It's right here. Point your phone to the QR code. Just click the Cash App button to continue to contribute. Check in money orders. Please make it out to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Please don't do my name or Black Star Network. Do Roland Martin Unfiltered, because that is a lot easier when we're dealing with our bank. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Brown versus the Board of Education. The history books call it the court decision that ended racial segregation in American schools. But a brand new book, Jim Crow's Pink Slip, uncovers a devastating unintended consequence of that 1954 Supreme Court decision.
We may, if we were lucky, have been the very last generation of Black students to have experienced these generations of Black teachers who have never been replaced.
Dr. Leslie Fenwick joins us to talk about her book and the actions following that landmark decision that dealt a virtual death blow to Black educators. That's next on The Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Now that Roland Martin is willing to give me the blueprint, hey, Cyrus, I need to go to Tyler Perry and get another blueprint because I need some green money. The only way I can do what I'm doing, I need to make some money. So you'll see me working with Roland. Matter of fact, it's the Roland Martin and Cheryl Underwood show. Well, should it be the Cheryl Underwood show and the Roland Martin show? Well, whatever show it's going to be good.
I have made my feelings known for years about hazing. Everybody knows. I pledged Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I crossed April 27th, 1989, pledging at Texas A&M University, Pi Omicron chapter. In April, it'll mark 38 years since I joined Alpha Phi Alpha. 36 years, 36 years. 2018, 20-year-old Tyler Hilliard, young man, promising young man, died as a result of a violent hazing ritual, and he was pledging my fraternity. I had an Omega who hit me up when we covered the story of the hazing death at Southern University, and a brother told me, that's not right. You went on I went on ABC News, and he said, that's not right. You were wearing your Alpha shirt. And I said, I wore it that day because I wanted them to understand that I am going to speak against this at all times. This young man was pledging at University of California, Riverside. And we did the story when it happened, and it was tragic. Now, I've made perfectly clear that there's no way in hell, I don't care whether you're talking about HBCU or PWI, that Black parents should be sending their kids to college and they come home in a body bag. I've made it clear whether you Alpha Phi Alpha or Kappa Alpha Psi or Omega Psi Phi or Sigma Phi Beta Sigma, or if you are an iota, I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're in a band. I don't care if it's a drill team. I don't care if it's a football team. How in the hell can we talk about building brotherhood if it leads to someone's death? This brother will never get an opportunity to celebrate a 36-year anniversary. Because of the actions of those individuals, he's dead. His parents believed in accountability, and so, as a monument to him, they helped to create a new law to hold colleges, hear what I said, hold the universities accountable for hazing incidents. There's a law called Tyler's Law. It expands existing laws in California, allowing students who have been injured in hazing rituals to actually sue the universities. Joining us now is Maisha Kimball. She is Tyler Hilliard's mother. Attorneys Tony Jaramilla, Krista Ramey, both from California. Maisha, certainly my condolences for you. No mother, no father should have to send their child off to school and they choose to pledge and then they come home deceased. When did you decide that, you know what, we got to do more than just grieve for our child?
That was decided after the initial grieving period. I knew I wanted to do more, but I didn't know where to begin. And when my attorney, Tony, who's with us now, brought this to my attention and asked me if I would want to be a part of it, of course, I jumped at the chance to be involved in it, to hopefully change, the trajectory of not, no parent sending their child off I mean, every time I speak about it, I get so emotional, but I just wanted to make sure no other parents had to deal with what me and Tyler's father had to deal with.
Tony, you know, there have been cases all across the country.
Yes.
Whether we're talking about historically black fraternities, white fraternities, sororities, bands, and you name it. We've seen laws passed other places as well. We've seen people go to prison. But this is unique. How many other states have passed laws that hold the institution accountable beyond the fraternity, sorority, or the guilty organization?
Right. I believe that Tyler's Law is first in California, is my understanding. And I wanted to first give credit to Krista Ramey. She was going to be here with us, but she unfortunately the timing was not right. She's at her brother's wedding, so she couldn't be here. But I wanted to at least give her the full credit for actually being the advocate with Assemblymember Chris Holden at the California Capitol regarding Tyler's Law. It is to hold schools, colleges accountable for hazing and not doing enough to prevent hazing. Because how it was prior to when this law came into effect, and this is what we were dealing with in Maisha's case with Tyler's, with the wrongful death case of Tyler, is that we were having trouble holding the university, he went to UC Riverside, accountable, because before this law, they can just simply say, well, we didn't know that hazing was happening. A lot of hazing happens at the, thick of night, right? Off campus. But these are organizations, whether it's fraternities or sororities or even sports teams that are doing hazing outside of the campuses. And so that's how universities were able to say, we knew nothing about it, even though we sponsor these organizations at our schools. And so we shouldn't be responsible for a death like Tyler. So this will change that, because universities now, you could sue them and they can't just like stick their heads in the sand, right? They have to have measures to protect students, hotlines, training, educational announcements regarding, what hazing is and how you can prevent it and how to report it. And then they would have an obligation to take action. And if this law had been in place, I think, we would have, hopefully it doesn't happen to other parents and other children and other students.
And look, I mean, the reality is, again, I've pledged people. There's a process. Organizations, they have risk assessment. You have to go through that actual training. You have to actually sign various things as well. But there are things universities can do. Universities can mandate that things can happen only on campus. They can mandate only in certain hours. They can actually do those things. They can even mandate that advisors to a chapter must be present at all times, and now you're also holding them accountable. And so there are more things that can be done. Maisha, have y'all heard from other parents? Have you heard of any universities or other groups out there saying, hey, that we appreciate this here? I'm just curious what the response has been since this law was passed.
Me personally, since the law was passed, no one has reached out to me in regards to things that universities can do to help, to mitigate other students being injured or dying due to hazing.
Tony?
Well, one of the things that this law required, though, is that the Department of Education by mid-2025, to be in effect in 2026, is that they are supposed to provide a anti-hazing, model policy. And so that's one of the affirmative things that this law required, where they would provide educational materials to not just students, but faculty, staff, administrators, come up with remedies and tools to make sure that there's some strong protections for students. So that's one of the positive things regarding this anti-hazing policy. As far as schools coming out and reaching out to us, like Maisha said, none have, but we do expect that they comply with the law and put things out there for the public to follow, and for universities and schools to follow, so that we don't have any more tragedies. And sadly, we heard that there has been other tragedies just shortly after this passage took place.
So I think back to the Crown Act, Maisha. It was first passed in California, and then efforts were made to try to do it on the federal level in other states. Is it your goal for this to become federal law?
I would love for this to become federal law, because I'm sure you've heard that there was another death about a week or two ago. And so, of course, that wasn't in California. I don't know if it was Texas or...
No, it was actually, we covered extensively. It was a young man, Caleb, who was in the band at Southern University in Baton Rouge. Okay,
yes. So I would love for this law to become, federal, so it can hit all states. Well, this is a problem. It's a growing problem. You would think at this day and age that we're not having students being injured or dying due to hazing. They should be uplifting their communities.
Well, unfortunately, what you have is, you have organizations that have put in strict procedures, all sorts of policies, legal ramifications, but what you have are individuals, 18, 19, 20, 21, who still have a mentality that, well, I went through it, I survived it, so therefore I'm going to do the exact same thing. And this, and what I have been saying, this is also what requires other members of fraternities and sororities or whatever to say, no, you're not going to bring that nonsense to us. It is something that is evil, that absolutely needs to end, and that's why I've absolutely supported if somebody is busted hazing. I get people talking about brothers in the criminal justice system. Those are folks for me that need to go to prison, because there are people I know who were not killed, but I was talking to one individual, and this guy pledged 30 plus years ago, and to this day has significant medical injuries as a result of what he actually went through, and his life has been completely compromised. So I don't have a problem with those folks going to prison because the actions are necessary, and there are rules against them, and that's why the laws are critically important as well.
Yes. And Roland, I would just like to say, sometimes I read the comments, and not saying your comments, but just on hazing incidents, period. And some people in the comments, they make statements such as, oh, these kids, they want to belong to something. That wasn't the case of Tyler. He didn't have a sense of wanting to just belong. He wanted to uplift his community. He wanted to build businesses and have them thrive for people that look just like him. So he wanted to make a difference in the community, and he loved what it stood for.
Right. And that's exactly what I made. Listen, my first convention was 1989. I pledged April. The convention was 3 months later. And I remember standing up at the convention, going hard against hazing. And that way, so even brothers in my chapter who were like, dog, you got to go so hard? Hell yeah, I do. Again, I was in the frat 3 months. I didn't care. And look, there are people today, people like, dude, man, do you have to be that hard? You damn right. Because I think the year before I pledged, I think it was 1988, a young brother got hit in the chest, pledged Alpha in Morehouse, died. And I'm like, you damn right. Somebody has to have the guts to say it should not happen. And you have to say that even to somebody who you call a brother. Absolutely.
And one of the sad things I just wanted to mention was so sad about this case was that a lot of the brothers could have come forward and stood up for Tyler and explain and reveal what happened. Because, like I said, the hazing takes place in the thick of night and under, outside of campuses. So there's no like adults supervising or doing anything like that. And what was so sad is that, trying to prove that this stuff happened and did happen to Tyler, none of his so-called brothers came out and say, yeah, that's what happened. And this is, so sad. And
right, because the if there is a blue wall in law enforcement, then there is a wall when it comes to D9. Everybody's real bold when it comes to hazing, but all of a sudden they clam up when something happens. The allegations in Louisiana are after they hit Caleb in the chest. They literally changed his clothes before dropping him off at the hospital. He died. That kid's life could have been saved, but they were more concerned about protecting their image and trying to cover up what they did than trying to save his life. And so those are the things that happen. And so it has to be called out. And again, if folks are sent to prison because of their actions, well, guess what? You don't want to go to prison? Don't haze. It is not that hard.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. And stand up for your, brothers or sisters or teammates, when this comes, and we have to hold people accountable and hold organizations accountable and hold colleges accountable for what's happened. What we rely on are our witnesses, and you owe it to your fellow brother, sister, teammate to tell the truth as to what happened.
Indeed, indeed. Congratulations on getting this law passed. Unfortunately, it was done under such awful circumstances. And again, my issue to you and your husband and your family, certainly condolences go out.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much. The point there, Greg, I want to start with you about the protection. I mean, I literally had people hit me up, and they were like, "Yo, man, you had to go so hard. You'd have to weigh your letters if it had happened. If it happened to an alpha, you wouldn't have done that." So first of all, the family there were conditions for the family in terms of what they could say, could not say. So otherwise, I would have had alpha material on today, but there was a reason I didn't. And the other reason I did not wear my alpha stuff today, also out of respect to Maisha, for her to have to sit here and look at the colors and letters, knowing full well what happened to her son. But this is the bullshit I'm talking about. Folk were like, yo, why you got to bring it up? Why you got to do it? Because it needs to be brought up. This brother is dead. Now, if you want me talking about white cops or even black cops killing an unarmed black man, then I'm going to talk about black frats killing an unarmed black man over some bullshit hazing.
We have to, Roland, and you've done this consistently. I think about our fraternity brother, Walter Kimbrough, who I saw a couple of weeks ago, who has written extensively about this, who has been an expert witness in cases about this topic. And yeah, man, how fast time flies as our frat hymn goes, college days swiftly pass. It was 40 years ago. In 2 weeks, it'll be my 40th anniversary having pledged. And I remember, I'm the first in my family to join a Greek letter fraternity. And I didn't join because of anyone who was at Tennessee State. I joined because I looked through the history book one day, and when I saw Martin Luther King and Duke Ellington and Jesse Owens and W.E. Du Bois and Paul Robeson, I said, I want to be part of this. And I think that's the reason why most of us join. And I'll tell you, it's a melancholy moment for me listening to this conversation that you had, because, as you said, listening there to Ms. Kimball and thinking about why I joined, why you joined, why so many people join these sororities and fraternities, and realizing that here in the month of April, this is the season when many folk who are joining will now be revealed. At Howard, that's what they're doing right now. We're getting down to it. People will start coming out, as they say. when you start talking about a bunch of 18 to 22 or 23-year-olds whose brains haven't fully formed, there are so many emotional, psychological games being played. I'm very hesitant these days to write letters of recommendation, depending on the circumstance, because things get very ugly very quick when you're talking about young adults. And unfortunately, that's sororities or fraternities. And I'll tell you, brother, this is a terrible collision between rites of passage, which we as African people began. We are the originators of the idea of coming to maturity and being initiated into the next level of responsibility. That's something very deep in our souls, and the legacy of our captivity. Because we did not do those things with a brutality that was injected into our experiences as African people during the period of captivity. And whether it be whipping your children when they're little and then taking pride as an adult that you were whipped, or putting your hands on another man, or as a woman playing a mind game so deep that the child now is maybe emotionally scarred for the rest of her life, this idea of imposing brutality on each other is a deep form of self-hatred. And as you talked about this law, hopefully it will do some good, but I think we both know, and all of us know who have gone through these processes, that there is something very deep and intractable about how Black people approach joining these organizations or any organization that requires pledging. We feel that it's inviolate. We feel like it is our not only responsibility, but something we will protect even when we are wrong. And brother, I don't know how we crack that nut except by doing exactly what you're doing today, which is being candid, honest, open, and unvarnished and taking this head on.
NOLA or for other members to look one of their own in the eye and say, you are not bringing that bullshit here. You will not touch any one of these folks. And if you do, we gonna deal with you accordingly.
Mm-hmm. You know, I listened to this story, and I'm happy that you cover this topic extensively. When I think about my own journey, you know, everybody know I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, right? I grew up on Xavier University's campus, been in STEM programs since I was literally in the fifth grade. I was on campus with my daddy since I was a little girl. I grew up in HBCU Greek culture, but I went to undergrad at UCLA. So once, you know, I fully accepted that my life was no longer in New Orleans, okay, I'm in Los Angeles, things didn't go the way that they were supposed to go. And I got to UCLA. One of the first things that I did was inquire about pledging AKA. But the chapter was suspended for some foolery. And they were like, oh, well, you can go to Cal State, blah, blah, blah. I was like, but I want to pledge here at UCLA, but the AKA chapter was suspended. And I bring that up as I think about Maisha, and I think about California. And I also went to USC. USC, it seemed like every other week had a situation in the news regarding some sort of hazing, that somebody got hurt, somebody got injured. It was always something. And the culture is very strong there. Less the Black Greek culture, more of the white students. But some of the things that I saw when I was there for grad school, I did not understand. And I didn't understand what would compel students to participate in some of the things that you saw on campus, right? So it's something about the California schools, in my experience, where there's this extra level of, I don't know if it's competition. I don't know. I've never been through the process. But coming from California, I can tell you this is a thing. This is a problem. And I hate that it had to end in this young man's life. And I think it's about time for these institutions to take responsibility. And yes, you should have your brother and your sister's back, right? When you see something that's over the top, when you see something that's beyond humiliating and it's demeaning, you speak up and you say something. There's power in numbers. You speak up and you say something. I can only say my limited experience. I'm not a Black Greek, so I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to criticize it. It's an institution that I hold in high regard.
You ain't got to be in to criticize. If you do stupid shit, you deserve the criticism.
That's right.
I agree, but y'all be coming for people, so I'm just letting y'all know.
No, that's dumbasses who come. That's people. Again, that's the problem that we have with too many of our institutions, Robert. Folk don't want to be checked. People want to, if you go to HBCU, you want to act like non-HBCU folk can't call out your bullshit. Well, the reality is, and this is what I always tell folk, man, well, you shouldn't air out dirty laundry. If you don't do dumb shit, then your laundry ain't public. The reality is, when you haze, then all of a sudden the cops are called, it's now public. Hospital records. Then you get, so it's all public. So if you don't want stuff to be public, how about you not break the damn law and do dumb shit? Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, Roland, look, you're completely right. And I had a similar experience to while I was in college. I was online pre-pledging for Omega, and then the chapter got suspended, and they have that conversation, said, well, you can always cross underground. Nah, I'm good. And my message is not to the universities, not to lawmakers, not even to parents. This is a message directly to the young people. If you are a young person who's 17 or 18 or 19 who's listening to this, who's thinking about pledging when you get to college or maybe next semester or two pledging, figure out if that group hazes, and if so, don't pledge. And this will all go away in the course of a couple years if you simply boycott organizations that haze. And I don't care if that's a fraternity or a sorority. I don't care if that is a marching band group or 4-H club. If they haze, don't do it. Have a personal boycott against getting your ass beat to join some organization. Because guess what? There's no tangible benefit to it taking place. They've even calmed the military down because of the culture of hazing that was in place over the course of many generations. The reason they changed it was hurting recruiting. It was hurting readiness. You can't go back to the full metal jacket days of military training. It is very different now for that exact reason. So I encourage you, don't participate in those groups and organizations. It does not make you a better member of that fraternity. It does not bring you closer to your line brothers or your line sisters. No. It does not make you more dedicated to the organization. It is just some people who have something, who have childhood trauma and hurt people, and join this masochistic idea that if I get to injure or psychologically manipulate or beat another person, that strengthens the organization, when in reality, these are supposed to be academic groups bringing in the best and brightest, who's pushing organization going forward.
And of course, also doesn't make any sense if you actually haze somebody, then your chapter gets suspended and kicked off the yard. Now y'all can't even be on the yard. And then you get sued. Now you're costing your fraternity or sorority money. It's all stupid. And you're absolutely right. I've had people call me. I've had people call me who want to pledge, and I told them point blank, don't you let nobody hit you for some letters. And then if there is a brother or a sister who actually was admitted to the fraternity or sorority after a hazing was reported, and then folks want to treat them like a scarlet letter was on them, why don't y'all do that to your members who chose to hit and beat somebody? Because trust me, that's what I do. If I find out that you one of them hazing type, I don't talk to you. I don't look at you. And I will cuss your ass out. And if I'm actually in the presence where some pledges are, and you attempt to do that, I'm just letting you know right now, the person pledging will not be the one getting their ass whipped. It's going to be you.
Well, this is that point that Jim Jones had made about why fraternities and sororities move like gangs, because in a gang you get jumped in, and there was that whole backlash. How dare Jim Jones say that? I mean, we've talked about in the last 2 months, 2 young Black men that are no longer on this planet.
Yeah.
Right.
Mothers and fathers are grieving because folk want to be stupid. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to offer any grace, or even where somebody told me, well, a little hazing is good. I said, hell no, you wrong as hell too. Let me go to a quick break. When we come back, a couple of things we're going to talk about. One, it's an amazing song by a Jamaican artist I heard when I was in Jamaica that really is uplifting. We listen to the words. We're going to talk to him next. And also, we're going to play you an interview I did a few years ago for the author of this book. His name is Keith Miller. The book is Martin Luther King's biblical epic, his final great speech, delivered tonight, 57 years ago, Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee, known as the Mountaintop Speech. But that was a 43-minute and 16-second sermon he gave, he said a lot more than just "I've been to the mountaintop." You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
This week on the other side of change.
The attacks on education, book bans, and what it means for us.
Our guest, Aaliyah Logan, who will join us talking about what are the implications for the lack of investment in education locally and internationally, and what this will mean for future generations.
Fighting back against any of the administration's attempt to essentially make sure that people are uneducated and destroy history and make sure you forget history and historical things that have happened.
Check us out on the other side of change, only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
Last month, I was in Jamaica with my 21-year-old twin nieces, celebrating them turning 21. And wherever I go, y'all know I love music. And wherever I go, I'm always Shazamming stuff. Before Shazam even existed, I used to sit there and listen to a song, write down 4 or 5 lyrics, and then I would then get to my computer, type in lyrics and to try to find the song. And so there's always the case. And so I forgot where I was. I don't know where I was. I was walking or something. And I heard this song, and I was like, God, this is an amazing song, and downloaded it. And then I had posted it yesterday on my social media. Then even on our family group chat, my sister was like, she said, oh, that's one of your dad's favorite songs too. The song is called People Like You. It is by Gramps Morgan. Check this out.
If you give a little more than you take, and if you try to fix more than you break, if you're the kind who take the time to help a stranger in the rain, there's a place for people like you. If you stand up for those down on their knees and lend a voice to those who cannot speak, if you shine a little light, give sight to the ones who've lost their way, there's a place for people like you. I've heard up there the streets are made of gold. When you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your days down here are through, there's a place up there for people like you.
Joining us now is Gramps Morgan. How you doing, Doc?
How you doing, Roland?
So, you there in Jamaica?
No, actually, right now I'm on another island called the Philippines.
Well, listen, I'm so sick of this it being warm, cold here. Give me consistent heat every single day. Let's talk about this song. So, you recorded this, 4 years ago?
4 years ago in Nashville, Tennessee, in the middle of the pandemic, Roland, and it was just a vibe of wanting to give people the appreciation, the people that were still in the supermarkets, the people that were still on the front line. And the song came about initially, Roland, because of a shooting in Halifax, Canada, where a school was shot up, and it was just showing appreciation for all the people that was working and paying attention to a rough situation. So this song was a song from our hearts here in Nashville, Tennessee, and that we gave to the world. And the song just took off and started playing all over the Caribbean.
See, it's interesting because as I was listening to it, you can tell it has a combination of that Tennessee bluegrass, Jamaican, and so I didn't even realize y'all recorded it in Nashville.
Yes. I moved to Nashville years ago. I was on tour with India Ari and John Legend, and went off the tour, and we played at a place called the Ryman. And I felt such an energy and appreciation for music in Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. And I said, I'm moving to Nashville. And my wife, who was a doctor at Vanderbilt University, of course, love make you do some things, but also for the love of music and the appreciation and the seriousness of how we take music serious in Nashville. And I took the opportunity in the pandemic to make myself better, wanted to become a better songwriter, a better artist, and Nashville gave me all of those tools, and Johnny Reed and the whole, Music City energy and over at Soul Train Studio. So I'm grateful.
Now, you know why it's called Music City, right?
Yes, sir.
That's black people.
Yes, sir.
Yes, because see, a lot of folk run around talking about Music City, Nashville, but they don't want to give credit to the Fisk Jubilee Singers for
Thank you, sir.
inspiring that name. And trust me, Dr. Greg Carr, graduate of Tennessee State, right there in Nashville. He knows a little bit about that history as well. He's going to be able to ask a question real soon. A lot of folks obviously know you from the group Morgan Heritage. And of course, matter of fact, one of the previous time I was in Jamaica, I've been 1,000 times. I was actually in the store and I heard, what did I hear? I heard a song, and that was quickly downloaded as well. But you said it spread around like the Caribbean, but did urban radio, did gospel radio, did radio pick up on this song? Because it's an amazing, gorgeous, moving song. I had lots of people commenting, talked about how they played it at funerals, they played it at video slideshows. Talk about that.
Well, it first started off in the sound system culture. A DJ by the name of Chin from an organization called Irish and Chin. And he heard the record, and once he heard it, he said, Gramps, what is this you have done? Do you know what you've created? And I said, I hope this song will heal hearts and encourage people to give them their flowers before they pass away. So it's a song encouraging, especially our community, to say, hey, man, come on, I believe in you. Thank you for being there in my life. So during the pandemic, Roland, we really got a chance to reflect. Mm-hmm. And this song never got a chance to get to urban radio or gospel radio. And I pray that every day I say, man, if Steve Harvey get a chance to listen to this song, to understand, because it's people like you in the media that can really understand songs like these, that's not really making you dance, but a song to make you reflect and appreciate those who have come before you and set the foundation.
I did send it to Steve Harvey. I said to him, I sent it to D.L. Hughley, Ricky Smiley, and some other ones as well. So we'll see what happens there. Go to my panel. I'll go ahead and start with Greg, since he knows well about that Music City scene there in Nashville.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Gramps. You said you played at the Ryman. Of course, I grew up in South Nashville, so the name D. Ford Bailey comes to mind. That black man who opened the Grand Ole Opry broadcast from that Ryman Auditorium back in the 40s and 50s, and people didn't realize when they were hearing that harmonica that this was the black man that opened the Grand Ole Opry broadcast every Saturday night from Ryman Auditorium. So I know you felt it in that cathedral, brother. That was the ghost of D. Ford Bailey. But I want to ask you your brilliant kind of extension of that roots culture, of that deep culture of Jamaica. What in terms of your process, it isn't the roots music perhaps that came out of the island, that circulated through the world, that gave birth to everything from hip hop. I know you're in Brooklyn, but you've kind of, in a sense, extended it for a new age. How would you talk about the relationship between the roots culture, the deep culture of reggae and ska and all of that music that you come from, and the music that we heard in that song today, which kind of speaks to a kind of contemporaneous expression of that tradition?
Yes, brother. I'm glad you asked that. Well, when you listen to a song like People Like You, there's a reflection. And like I said, during the pandemic, we all had a chance to make ourselves better because we had time to work on things that we wanted to become better at or improve or learn a new skill. So for me, it's been a sound in my mind for many, many years, even while touring with my siblings, Morgan Heritage. And the story of how reggae and country music blends in the islands has really never been told repeatedly. So me growing up, when we were making rice and peas on a Sunday dinner, family dinner is a very important thing in the Caribbean. So whatever island you are in the Caribbean, you always heard country music, gospel music, people like Fats